And we're back with more of the Shacknews Awards 2023. We are now going to deliberate on the most improved game of the year 2023. So, this category allows for games to be nominated that were already released. In fact, all of them have already been released. A game can improve in the year it's released, but this tends to be reserved for games that may not have launched in the best condition that now look pretty good. A good example of this would be No Man's Sky, which had a rocky launch but has improved to become one of the best space flying procedurally generated planet games out there.
Mhm.
So let's get started. I'll list off the nominees and then we'll get chatting about these. Cyberpunk 2077, Halo Infinite, Vampire Survivors, Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, and Hitman World of Assassination. So those are the nominees. Who would like to chat about Cyberpunk first?
I was going to leave this to Donovan, but if he doesn't want to do it.
I have another game nominated here that I am going to be speaking about.
So do I.
I mean, I can also talk about Cyberpunk.
We can tag team it. You can go and I can go.
Yeah, I mean, Cyberpunk 2077, it's like night and day difference, right? Like that is probably the latest poster child for like what a most improved game is.
Yeah.
Obviously, everybody knows the state that game was in 2020, and now you play it, and it is like one of the best modern RPGs you can play. It's great. The 2.0 update was massive. Phantom Liberty was great. Those releasing within a month of each other was insane. It feels like playing a different game. Just the reworked skill trees, the changes to AI and the police, all the added story content. That game is thoroughly like at least a couple points on a review scale better than it was when it first came out. So yeah, definitely worth a nomination here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's probably one of the most interesting open worlds to be in around, and a lot of that has to do with the improvements that were made. But it's clear that it was improved. I don't think that that's up for debate. Like I think we all agree, like that game is much better today than it was when it released. And the angle that I always take about that is the appreciation, because I was so let down when that game came out that I couldn't enjoy it. And the funny thing is the improvements aren't just making the game better, they're actually unlocking the experience. And they're doing that because the quests were always amazing. The dialogue was always amazing. The characters were always amazing. The storytelling was always amazing, but you couldn't really enjoy it because everything got in your way. Something was always taking away from the experience. So, in a way, the improvements that they've made have actually unlocked the ability to enjoy the game the way that you should have been able to enjoy it when it came out.
But didn't they set the bar pretty low?
They did, but I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say, oh, now it's an okay game. No, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I get that. And like I said, I don't think that what I just said should preclude it from winning this category. I just think that it did ship in very poor state, especially on some consoles.
I agree. I totally agree. It did ship in a very poor state, and the console thing was unacceptable. It's just that it was reasonable to hate on Cyberpunk when it came out, but the funny thing is that the things that make it truly amazing were always there.
Yeah.
They just you couldn't just get to them and enjoy them without something dragging you back.
So there's no T-poses anymore when people are getting in and out of cars?
I have not had a T-pose, and I have not had a random NPC follow me around for 10 hours, and I'm not even kidding. Like when I first started playing, I had an NPC
I remember
that followed me, and I took screenshots like hours apart of him just literally. I'd be in a cutscene and he'd sit on the couch and he was just attached at my hip. Like I was hiding in a closet and people were having conversations outside of the closet, and he was standing outside of the closet waiting for me to come out of the closet, and like of course no one acknowledging that he's standing there. But
I had
yeah.
the bug where everyone was afraid all the time because like I killed one person and then like every NPC was like cowering for. I had to restart the game or like reload it to the state before
Maybe
that
you're
fixed
just that
it.
legendary. Also,
I guess they all cowered when I walked by them. I guess,
I
but
also think it's worth mentioning that like not everything that's improved upon in Cyberpunk was something that was broken. They've literally taken some things that just didn't hit and made them into better versions. That
Yes,
skill
yeah.
tree rework is a big deal to me because I don't really like. You couldn't get me to care more, like any less about the original skill trees in that game. They just weren't that great at perks,
Mhm.
and that rework really kind of it made me want to go back in and respec my character right away in like 20 different ways.
They also allowed you to do it for free,
Mm-hmm.
like which wasn't a thing. So you could go in and like now you can go in and reset your character at any point for free and respec. And the funny thing is that came in handy to me. Now I only did it once because I think I read that you can only do it once and then it actually costs like the second time, but I don't know if that's true because I never actually had to reset. I got to the final boss encounter, and I won't spoil anything about it even though it's years later, but I was like, "Oh, I'm not prepared for this at all," and I just respect my skill tree on the spot to adjust for what I needed to do to beat the final boss.
That's cool.
To add on to TJ's things though, also like, and this doesn't disqualify from the category. I just think it took it took 3 years for it to get to this point. So like a lot of games maybe only had a year or two. This game had 3 to fix itself, so they had a lot of time to make all the changes.
It's almost like the game shouldn't have come out when it did.
Yeah, it's almost like
Yeah.
these stockholders were wrong about releasing it too early for holiday season.
Yeah, but we don't blame the devs for that. That's executive level decisions
Yeah.
being made that affect the quality of games all the time. We see it across the board in this industry. But I'm glad that they were able to get it in a state where I actually want to play it. Because I bounced off of it super hard, Bill, kind of like you did when it launched. And I was playing it on PC, which ultimately was the best platform to play that build on, and it still had problems. So it's nice to see that they have improved it. CD Projekt has shown like that they will support a game for a very long time after it ships, and
This was my third attempt. So I
Yeah.
tried it when it released. I tried it last year. And by the time I actually started a playthrough to beat it, I think I had crossed the 30-hour mark. So I put 30 hours into an experience where I was like, it's not happening.
Mhm.
And then I finally beat it this year.
Well, I think we've said enough nice things about Cyberpunk. Let's move on to our next nominee. How did Halo Infinite get on this list?
Oh, let me tell you how Halo Infinite
Pardon me,
found its
sir.
way
We
on
told
this
about our
list
Lord and Savior Halo
because
Infinite.
Okay,
Well-
I'll allow it, Donovan.
while Sam Chandler's not here today, I swore to him that I would make a passionate argument on behalf of Halo Infinite in this category. And I think it's actually deservedly so. I'm not just doing it because Sam
Mhm.
is my mate. So this year, I believe they released 3 total seasons for Halo Infinite. Seasons 3, 4, and 5 just came out weeks ago, I believe. All of which have like added an abundance of content to this game, from new game modes to new maps, returning maps. They've added new gadgets and weapons. I was jumping in recently, and I think some of the new ones they had was like the Quantum Relocator, which is like this teleportation item. They've added the Threat Seeker. They've reworked the events now to run longer and to be more accessible for players. I think that as far as the live service aspect goes, Halo Infinite is still like low key one of the best formats for it, where all of their battle passes are around in perpetuity. Like if you missed season 4 and you just get back into Halo Infinite, you can just go into the settings and reactivate the season 4 battle pass and just play through it. So they eliminate that FOMO that all of these live service games kind of like keep their players on the hook for. So if you're a lapsed Halo Infinite player, you actually don't miss out on that much content, which I think every live service game that has a battle pass should adopt that format personally. Um, it's great. I think most recently they did the Halo 3 Reloaded event where they brought back a bunch of maps from Halo 3. Loading into it now, there are so many different playlists. They've got infections in there. There are a shit ton of armor cores, cosmetics. This game is just like, I know Halo Infinite did not launch the way anyone wanted it to, or it didn't have the content there, but they have just like kept their heads down and just improved that game over and over and over since that was 2020 that it came out, maybe. Yeah, that's in a really good state right now. It is a great multiplayer Halo game. Probably has
It-
more content, more stuff to do than any other Halo
I'm
game
glad
so
that you
far.
mentioned the word multiplayer because that's a game that like it feels like two games in one. There's the single
Yeah.
player experience and then there's the multiplayer experience. And they made the multiplayer experience free to play, which is like a brand new thing for Halo also.
Mhm.
So is it really better? Are you playing it more?
It is, yeah. I've played a good amount of season 5 actually. It's a lot of fun. It's great. They've added way more because for me, I put like well over 100 hours into this game when it first came out, and it's like 1.0 state. And then I just ran out of things to do. I was like, I've seen and done all of this countless amount of times. And it was a good reset jumping back in. Even like progression, I believe a couple seasons ago at this point, they added like career rank. So you've got something to kind of work towards when you
Yeah.
finish the battle pass. So that was one of the things when you finish the battle pass, there was like nothing to work towards or earn in that game. But that's given me something to keep playing with. The I played for hours and I don't think I've gotten to all the maps they've added. It's been cool to jump through because they've brought back some old ones, they've done some fresh ones. They've also remixed some maps, which is like when they bring back the old layout, but it's recontextualized for Halo Infinite setting and characters and location, which is quite fun. Yeah, this game's dope. It's great. It is a very improved game. You look at where it started to where it is now, they've covered a lot of ground. They have improved Halo Infinite vastly. So
Is the hit detection better?
I think it's great. I think that the hit detection's great. I never complained about it. That's my my personal Halo Infinite take. I think it's
Okay.
great. Mhm.
I'll take your word for it, but I don't think it's gonna win. Sorry. But a fine nomination. It's by definition,
It's
it
improved.
has
Yeah.
improved.
Yeah.
So,
Vastly.
Donovan's right. It's improved. Yeah. That's.
but is it the most improved, Greg? That's what we're talking about here. And I gotta say, Vampire Survivors was not like these past two nominees, where it shipped in very good condition. But boy, howdy, have they added a ton of stuff to Vampire Survivors. The most important, in my opinion, is 4-player co op. That's like a whole new way to play that game. And it's super fun. And then all the new levels, all the new modes,
It's on
all
Switch.
the it's on Switch. They have improved that game all over the place. And I think it's a pretty affordable game, right? Isn't it like $2 or $3 or something?
It's like nothing. Yeah. It's pennies.
It's very cheap. It might be $5. I can't remember. And it's on Game Pass too, right? But yeah, like it was a small studio that had a home run, and it kind of reminds me of Dead Cells, where like they got something really right and they just kept piling on more good stuff. And all the DLC I believe is free for Vampire Survivors. So it's been awesome. This has been a great year. Last year was a huge year for them. They have continued their the momentum. And I think that game's awesome. But yeah, Vampire Survivors definitely deserves a nomination in this category. Anyone else have anything to say about Vampire Survivors?
It's kept me busy in airports for so long. TJ, I
Yeah.
think you said the same thing, didn't? Like it's kept you busy at airports for hours when your flights are delayed.
Vampire Survivors is a fast forward button on life.
It. Put a box quote. Put it on the box.
Quote. Put that on a box quote. And even more so now with more things to do. But yeah, highly recommend it if you haven't tried it. It was definitely one of our top 10 games of the year last year at Shacknews. So I think it's a nice break from these past two games that we mentioned that were kind of in rough shape when they shipped and now have become better. Also, these were very large companies as opposed to a very small dev team at Poncle that made an awesome game. So shout out to Vampire Survivors. Greg, would you like to talk about Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed? And the
Would
year it
I?
had?
Yeah. Oh my God. What a great year for Ghostbuster fans to get. Last 12 months, we got a new movie announcement and we got an ASIM game from Elphonic, which is amazingly self-published by themselves. Which is Elphonic's not a small developer, but they're definitely not a huge developer either. Over the last 12 months, This game has received multiple DLCs, all free. Every quarter they get a new DLC. This included but not limited to new ghosts, new maps, new story campaign options, technically a new mode, not really new mode, but like a new ways to play. Just a ton of stuff. There's no battle pass. There's no microtransactions yet. I don't know if there will be, but as of right now, there's none. All of it was completely free. So I'm gonna go list the things they added. Since launch, they've added a total of 28 different ghost types, 10 different maps, a semi-lengthy story campaign for an ASIM, which is really rare. Like, you don't get story campaigns. Like, Dead by Daylight does a lot of animatics and like walls of text, but there is no story campaign. They have a story campaign with full cutscenes, voiced, animated, all the good stuff. They've added so many different cosmetics to make your Buster look how they want you to look. And you can even make people like Luigi. I just shared a picture in general. People have been making Luigi in this game. They've been making the original Ghostbusters. They've been making Mario, Wario, Waluigi. A bunch of different crazy designs based on their facial sculpt and their customization options. A plethora of jackets, hats, gear, gloves, boots, badges. I mean, everything. And they just keep adding. They recently just added cardboard versions of the Proton Packs, like toy versions of them. They've added the real Ghostbuster cosmetics from the cartoon, which is a super deep cut, which has in turn led more people to discover the cartoon for the first time, which is always a great thing. They even added the oddball ones, like the Extreme Ghostbusters that was only on for a season, or the movie that was very controversial. They put that stuff in there as well. It's like the ultimate Ghostbuster game for a Ghostbuster fan, and it had only gotten better. And that's not just including also the bug fixes, the balance changes that they released over the last patch was, I think, mid-October. So that was full transparency of 12 months of just updates. It's been absolutely awesome to see this game grow and evolve and continue to add content. I don't know what the future holds for it next year, but if we're looking at terms of most improved over a 12-month period, I think this is great. It's one of the very few games as a service games that don't have a battle pass, like I said before. Like, that's amazing that they didn't even have that thought. They're like, no battle pass, no microtransactions. And it's just been absolutely fantastic to see it grow and evolve over the last 12 months.
Nice. Anyone else feel strongly about Ghostbusters? Does anyone else own a Proton Pack?
I mean, I'm biased as hell. Like, you look at my background, it's just like, wow.
Like, I'm looking at the background. There's like a Proton Pack hanging there. I'm
yeah,
like,
I can't hide my bias. I can't. I absolutely cannot. There's
it's
so
fine.
much bias. I can't.
You know, I may or may not have an F-099 bias, but you know, it's fine. I don't know what the equivalent of for Proton.
But in a world, I think a world of online games, especially ASIMs,
yeah,
like, you know, where Evil Dead basically had stopped development, you know, there's no more new content coming. It was really nice to see this year-long roadmap that they came out with at the front. They said they were going to have 12 months of free DLC, but the amount of it was really shocking. And the last one they dropped, which was in October, released it on Switch, and now it's crossplay. It's crossplay across everything, including PS4 and Xbox One, not mobile, but everything else. So Nintendo Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and X, PC, Steam, and Epic Game Store, everything. So like it's just great to have that, because there's a lot of games that cover almost everything, and sometimes they leave out Nintendo Switch for obvious reasons. But it was kind of cool to get it on that platform as well and have it be completely crossplay.
I think it's just good for the health of a live service game to be on as many platforms as possible with crossplay supporting it. That's how you stay in the game longer, I think. We got another nomination here, though, Greg, so I'm going to have to move on. Hitman World of Assassination. Sorry, it just sounds like you have to say it like
that. Goes without saying.
I know TJ is going to have some to add to this, but I want to explain the significance of they released freelancer mode in January. That was a long time ago. January was like 10 years ago. But to understand freelancer mode, you have to have a very basic understanding of what the entire Hitman World of Assassination trilogy is. The goal of that is typically in a mission to not just assassinate somebody, but to do so without being caught, without leaving any evidence. And this entire trilogy of games was set around the story of Agent 47 and his origins and so on and so forth. When they released freelancer mode, they released a rogue-like mode to Hitman. This came after all 3 games had released. It was completely free, and it essentially doubled if not tripled the size of the game in terms of content to play. simply by allowing you to play in a different way. So in freelancer mode, Agent 47 has a safe house, which is important because one of the things lacking from Hitman has always been backstory on 47. How did he become a world-class drummer? How was he a 5-star Michelin chef? We don't know these answers. He does all these things and he's very good at them. In Freelancer, you start with a very limited safe house where you have a almost like a lair in your basement and a gear wall. You can start Freelancer mode without actually digging into Hitman. You don't have to go play the main game to do so. You don't have to go unlock gear. You don't have to grind through all the levels. You show up, you have essentially nothing, and the mode encourages you to play in a completely opposite way of the entire main game. So it's like taking the formula and saying, well, you've had fun with that for 7 years. Let's let you do something else. In Freelancer, the only goal is to kill whoever you have to kill. But what you do is you earn money and you pick up gear while you're in those levels. And when you escape the level successfully and don't get wounded, you come back and you fill out this gear wall. And whatever gear you take into a mission, if you fail, and there's no saves in a freelancer mode, so you can't go into a mission and save. If you fail, whatever gear you had is gone. You've lost it. You have to go back, either acquire it again in a new campaign or buy it again from a supplier, whatever it might be. But the reason that this is most improved is because, kind of like Vampire Survivors, we're not talking about a game that was like, wow, we're missing something. This is a game that has a monthly roadmap, and every, I'd say 3 to 4 days, there's new content coming to Hitman. In
And
addition,
how many years after launch are we talking? This is like
well,
3
if you
years?
talk about the entire trilogy, which Freelancer does encompass the entire trilogy, it's 7 years. It came out in 2016.
Okay.
So basically, on a monthly basis, there's new elusive targets. There are new contracts. I mean, we had community contracts in it 1 year. Those are still continuing, by the way. So, like, even though we had ours a couple of years ago, maybe last year, I think it was last year. I can't remember exactly, but that's still happening. So, you know, you can go into Hitman today and play the Shacknews contracts, or you can play any number of other community websites and content creators contracts. But Freelancer was the big one because it took a game that a trilogy of games where you could probably spend, if you wanted to, you could beat it in 10 hours and just move on with your life if that's what you wanted to do. If you wanted to master it, maybe 250 hours. Then you go into Freelancer and it's like, I kind of want to master Freelancer. Cool, that's another 150 to 2 hours of content that they just threw on the top after completing a trilogy. So
and free.
Free. Yeah, it's free for everybody. And you don't have to play the main game to get into Freelancer and have the exact same experience. So you're not falling behind because you didn't spend as much time in the main game as me. And it also completely changes the way that you play. If you want to be stealthy and not get caught and not have anybody know you're in the level, you can still do that. Myself, I take a much more chaotic approach. If my target is standing in a, I don't know, is standing around other NPCs, sometimes there might be collateral damage because I'm just trying to get out of there with my gear. It really changes the way that you think about it and ups the stakes, knowing that, you can take your favorite pistol into the mission, and if you screw things up, you're not coming home with it. So anyways, I don't know what TJ might have to add to that, but
I think one of the strengths of freelancer mode is just like it's not just a roguelike that takes us back to familiar locations. Every target that you go after, the way that freelancer mode is built is that you go after a faction, and every single one of the factions has very specific like rules and like objectives that go along with defeating it. And so like not only does it force you to adapt in so many ways because you don't get to keep anything except for the gear that you head into the mission with and you take out of it, but you also often have something like you can get extra cash if you hit this target with a sniper rifle, or you can get extra cash if you finish this deranged doctor with a medical syringe. And like extra cash in that mode is a huge deal because you often get like options for weapons and gear that otherwise you just won't have. It's it's almost like they released a light version of a new Hitman game on top of the existing Hitman game. And I think that's incredible to offer for free.
All the target, by the way, and they're not reusing targets. So everything that everyone you're going after is a completely different, like they've added the NPCs in there. They've changed the position of some guards so that things are different. They've added cameras where cameras weren't before. And to TJ's point, like last night I started up a campaign against like Big Pharma. That was the faction I was going after. So all the objectives are like poison a target, do this, like and it does, it gives you the opportunity. Like I've been in some missions where I'm like, man, I'm not doing well and I think I'm going to fail here. And instead of like going for all those extra objectives to make more money, I'm just trying to get back in one piece. And I'm like, here's a stick of C4, boom, and I'm diving out the door. Like I don't care. Like those objectives are optional, and you want to complete them so you can buy more stuff and you can unlock more cosmetics for your Agent 47 safe house, which is kind of the point. Like you're literally building his entire safe house and the grounds around it by adding things as you unlock them. And sometimes you have to decide, do I want to make an extra $1,000 on this contract by poking this doctor with a lethal syringe, or am I going to chuck some C4 into his car and run away with my life?
That does sound pretty damn impressive. And
Yep.
I know they're working on that Bond game now too, right? So this is
Mhm.
just kind of on their this is kind of on the side. They're still showing love to the Hitman community. This was originally called Hitman 3, right?
Yeah, so Hitman 2016 would have been like one in this trilogy, and then Hitman 2, I think, was 2018. And then they had Hitman 3, and then they realized that that was all very weird and that all those games interconnect.
Yeah.
Like all the gear that you unlock in 3, you can go back and use them on levels in 1 that you might have played 7 years ago and you didn't have that gear, so it just allows you to play it in a completely different way. But yeah, they just renamed it World of Assassination because that's like the storyline behind the trilogy.
And you basically can play all 3 games now in this game, right?
Yeah, I don't know the details. I know that at one point like you had to buy a specific Hitman 2.
Yeah.
Like it was like a pack. Like you had to spend like $10 extra when you bought Hitman 2, but I think with Hitman 3
I was just
everything's sort of encompassed.
just
It
kind of
took a
making the
lo-
point like about improving a game. Like you look at over the years just how much they've added to this game is kind of staggering, and the
Yeah.
fact that they're still doing it is
Like
impressive.
a specific example is in Hitman 3 they released a micro taser,
Mhm.
right? And that didn't exist until Hitman 3 came out. So I've taken that micro taser from Hitman 3 and I've gone back into Hitman 1 that came out in 2016 and placed it in a puddle and let my target walk over the puddle, triggered the taser and electrocuted them. And like that puddle's been there, but I just never had the means to make use of it in any way. So I
Yeah.
now take something that I played 7 years ago and it's like, oh, there's this brand new way to interact with
That's
it.
cool.
And like to Oscar's point, like the issue with the Hitman trilogy for a long time was that the rules of upgrading and like consolidating all 3 games into one package were different depending on the platform. PlayStation, PC, and I think Xbox and PlayStation worked by the same rules, but they were different from PC, and it confused a lot of people because certain transitions, certain upgrades weren't available on every outlet. So when they finally got here this year, they finally gave us a simplified solution to all that just makes it into either one easy upgrade or one easy purchase altogether.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I think we're ready to vote, right? Anyone else have anything else they want to say? Actually, real quick, I did notice that Sam had attached a note to his vote.
Oh yeah,
He-
I got that. Yeah, it was links to just different like posts
Okay.
about the updates. Yeah, I covered that.
Okay, so yeah, he mentions the new maps: Chasm, Cliffhanger, Oasis, Forest, Scar, Dredge, Forbidden, and Prism. New modes: Escalation Slayer, Infection, Extraction. New weapon: Bandit, Bandit Evo. New equipment: Shroud Screen, Quantum Translocation. That's actually a cool one. I think you mentioned that, Donovan. And
Yeah.
Threat Seeker. But yeah, just wanted to make sure that I gave Sam his due here. He's obviously voting for Halo Infinite, and so is Ozzy. So I got 2 votes out there. Let's start with Denny. Denny, what is your most improved game? Vote.
I'm gonna have to go with Cyberpunk. I think that it was pretty much not a fun experience for me. It's been pretty entertaining. I'm really enjoying what I have played so far since then, and the expansion's pretty cool too.
Yeah. Oh no, Phantom Liberty. I've seen people say that if they could, they would vote for that for their game of the year. So yeah, it's that's quite a turnaround they've had. David.
I'm gonna go with Ghostbusters. I went into this thinking Cyberpunk, but it definitely meets the definition of this category. But I almost feel like the state it was in,
It could only go up.
How could you not improve?
Yeah.
How could you not improve? And it was almost like they charged people for an early access game, and it took 3 years for them to hit 1.0 kind of thing. And I'm not
And
taking
those-
anything away from it, but
And those people who bought it for the base PS4, they're not getting a good experience still.
that was my
That's
my
true.
next point. So I feel like CD Projekt finally got it to where it needed to be. But Ghostbusters, it sounds like they've done a lot, so I'm going with that.
And for free.
And for free. Yep.
Donovan.
Yeah, I think for me, this award it's about distance traveled, and Cyberpunk launched in such a bad state that it ruined the reputation of one of the most prestigious game developers in the industry, and they will spend several years recovering from that. But I think they really turned Cyberpunk around. I think that game is in an amazing state. They could have very much gave it 6 months of updates, got it barely playable, then moved on to The Witcher 4. But I think they've done something really remarkable with it. So that is my vote.
Not Halo
Nice.
Infinite?
No, I think that Halo Infinite I enjoyed more in its 1.0 launch date than Cyberpunk. So
Yeah.
I think
that's fair to
Cyberpunk
say.
traveled a further distance than Halo did in my eyes.
I think that's a sound point, Donovan. Greg, who are you voting for?
Gee, I wonder what's behind me. Yeah, your bias is showing. Ghostbusters, Spirits Unleashed.
Okay. TJ.
Hitman fans constantly ask, how do you improve upon perfection? And IO Interactive is like, hold my beer every month.
Yeah. That's for sure. Bill.
As worthy as I think Cyberpunk is, I like Hitman's like a top 3 for me over the last like 7 years, and they just completely gave me a way to go back and instead of rehashing it, I just get to play like new stuff 7 years later. I have to be Hitman.
Okay. Steve.
Going Cyberpunk.
My vote does matter.
Wait, what did Sam say?
Sam voted for Halo Infinite. Ozzy voted for Halo Infinite.
Oh, so they're okay.
So right now, if I vote for anything that isn't Cyberpunk, we have a runoff vote. So I have a lot of power in this vote. And I
As you should, as the benevolent dictator of Shacknews.
I intend to use it for good here. I really like Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed. I thought it was a great game when it shipped. And I think it's been cool to see how they have done this last year with supporting the community. I'm voting for Ghostbusters, which causes a runoff vote.
Oh no.
So if you voted for Halo Infinite or Hitman 2, you're gonna have to vote for either Cyberpunk or Ghostbusters now. So let's just all start. Let's do another vote. Denny, you sticking with Cyberpunk?
Yeah, I'm still gonna roll with Cyberpunk on this one.
And David, you're sticking with Ghostbusters?
Yes.
And Donovan, you're sticking with Cyberpunk?
Correct.
And I am sticking with Ghostbusters, and Greg's sticking with Ghostbusters. TJ?
The part about PS4 players still having a bad experience hits me in a way that like makes me go, improving the game for just some people and not for others, and leaving certain folks that you promised an experience to a good time and then leaving them in that bad time that you decide to release is just scuzzy to me. Ghostbusters did nothing wrong. They improved quite well. I'm going to go with Ghostbusters.
And you can play it on PS4.
Bill, are you moving over to Cyberpunk?
I was gonna make a joke and say get new consoles, nerds, but I think that no, I'm joking. I'm you know what? I think that's a pretty good argument that David made about the PS4. And so I'm gonna go with Ghostbusters because I don't know, it feels like the right decision in this case.
Steve, are you sticking with Cyberpunk?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Cyberpunk.
It doesn't matter what you're.
It doesn't
No,
matter.
congratulations then to Ilphonic. They have won the Shacknews Award. Ghostbuster Spirits Unleashed has won the Shacknews Award for Most Improved Game of the Year 2023.
Look at that.
How about that?
Something weird, and it don't